How is my policy performing? Have you ever asked that question with a whole life insurance policy? We get this question quite a bit, and it is a natural question to ask if you started your policy with the goal of maximizing the cash value. You want to know, how's it performing? Specifically, is the cash value performing similar to what that original illustration showed? That's usually what people want to know. And if it is, that's great. If it's not, why not? Has the dividend rate changed? Is it because I paid in a different amount? I just want awareness to understand what's going on with my money. Because naturally, it's your money in a policy. We want to know how it works and make sure that we're getting the most value out of it. So what we're going to look at today is a case study. This is based on someone who started a policy back in June of 2020, and he recently asked this question. This is how the conversation started during one of our review calls, which was, how is my policy performing? So we're going to address that, and then also some other items that he had some interest in. So when he started the policy, he was 44 years old, and the funding, or the planned funding, I should say, was $80,000 per year for about 6 years. So you'll see him funding exactly that. He's already paid 3 years, so he's got 3 years remaining in order to match that original plan, meaning max fund it at about $80,000 per year for 6 years. The goal, cash value. You'll see some additional goals in a minute though, but cash value was the main reason he took this policy out. The death benefit is valuable, but using the cash value is what he's interested in. Now we see different crediting options here, dividend and an index rider. So this is a whole life insurance policy. It's a product with Guardian, one of your 4 major mutual companies, and he has an indexed participation feature rider attached. What this allows for is for him to tie his cash value to the S&P 500 index. And in summary, in short, it allows for a little bit greater earning potential, a little bit more upside on cash value growth. Now, since he started the policy, he has only exercised the basic dividend. He can exercise the indexed rider right now. When he can make that decision is on his policy anniversary date, which will be June of this year, June of 2023. So we can look at it at that point in time. And what I like about this rider is right now he's at 0%. And if you have it attached and set at 0%, it functions as if you never had the rider attached in the first place, meaning it's a dividend paying whole life insurance policy. If you see an opportunity and you say, you know what, I want to participate in the S&P 500 index, let me put all of my cash value into this rider or let me activate this rider to have 100% of my cash value linked to the index. You can do that. However, if you said, you know what, I'm not comfortable with putting 100% of my cash value into this feature, let me go with 50%. And then leave the other 50% in the basic dividend portfolio. And you can adjust it as time passes as well. Now we've got other videos that provide a full overview on that rider. It goes over the fees. There's a charge on the years I exercise it. So I do want to have awareness on exactly how that rider works. However, he was interested in attaching that rider and he has an interest in using it in the future. So when we look at the policy performance, especially moving forward, we're going to look at what it potentially will produce based on the basic dividend rate, and then also based on the indexed rider and what that performance can produce. So, performance, original break-even point, when we looked at the initial illustration, was between the 3rd and 4th year. So what that means, break even, is when your cash value is equal to or greater than your total payments. So for example, if you've paid in $80,000 per year for 3 years, how much have you paid in? $240,000. If I have $230,000 in year 3, so let's do this. We'll say by the 3rd year, you've paid $240K, and your cash value is $230K. Has your policy broke even? No, because you have $10,000 less than what you've paid in. By the 4th year, however, let's do this. If you paid another $80,000, your total payments are what? $320,000. And if your cash value is $350,000, did you break even? Yes, because you have more money in cash value than what you've paid into the policy. And it would not be $350 in a case like this. By year 4, it might be $325 or $330. But my point is, when I refer to the word break even, or when you hear that from any life insurance agent when you're going through the policy performance, the break even point is when your cash value is equal to or greater than your total payments, the year that occurs. So what's nice about this is you're going to see what actually happened each year since he started his policy and see when the break even point is occurring, which will be cool. So what we'll look at in terms of the funding then is as follows. $80K per year for 6 years. It's actually a bit more than that. But then $80,000 per year for 6 years with another $30,000 per year, years 7 through 10. He was interested in seeing that. And then he also asked, what if I just want to keep paying money in for a long time? So what we ran here was $80K per year for the first 6 years, then $30,000, years 7 through 10, and then more money through year 30. Why I have more money there is you're going to see different amounts as time passes. But this is all the same policy, just displaying illustrations of what the policy looks like if he adds more money, along with different assumptions here with respect to the crediting rate. Now on the goals, his goals are as follows. Number 1, maximize the cash value. Number 2, use the policy for real estate. So when we look at using it for real estate, we'll look at a loan model, which he can plug in his actual policy values and get a quick projection of what things would look like if he takes a loan against his policy. How much will he be paying in loan interest compared to how much he is receiving in interest? When I say interest, I'm referring to the guaranteed rate and dividends that are being paid to him from the insurance company. Let's get on into it and have some fun. So what we'll begin with is the $80,000 per year for 6 years. And I did mention $80K plus because it's a bit more than $80,000 per year. So as we look at this guy, what's highlighted in yellow here, years 1 through 3, represents what has already happened, what he's already paid into the policy. So this goes back beginning 2020, when he started his policy, funded up to the max, $82,400, and the dollar amount, the cash value on his annual statement was just about $73,000. Now, when he started that policy back in 2020, the dividend interest rate with Guardian was what? 5.65%. So going back to that original question, what am I earning on my money, or how is my policy performing? If he asks that question on the 1-year policy review, how did my policy perform this year? What did I earn? What's the dividend rate? What is the appropriate way that question should be answered? Should I say the dividend rate was 5.65%? You could say that because it's true that the dividend interest rate was 5.65% that year. However, if I'm him, here's what I'm going to look at. I paid in $82,400. I have $72,900. So no matter how I spin that with respect to the dividend interest rate, the net growth rate is a negative 11.53% return. So I've got a negative internal rate of return in the first year because I have less cash value than what I paid into the policy. And the reason for that is because it's the first year. That's where the expenses are heaviest, particularly on the base premium. The insurance company is overcharging one for the cost of insurance, particularly the death benefit up front. That's what's going on. So yeah, I've got the life insurance benefit, which is great, but for someone who is very, very focused on the cash value, I take that first year hit. I need to have awareness on that. And my opinion, answering that question with respect to you lost money, you had a negative hit in the first year, is a fair way to answer that question when someone's asking, how is it performing? We were negative in the first year as the original illustration displayed. Okay, next year, he paid in $82,400. What happened? His cash value was 72 and change. Now it's 156 and change, almost 157. So he got his $82,400 back and a little bit more. The net growth rate was just over 1% that year, 1.04%. So it is true that the dividend interest rate was again 5.65% that year. However, that is a gross dividend rate. What his cash value actually grew by, when we look at just the total dollar amount of growth that he received from the insurance company, came out to 1.04%. Early years will always be the weakest in whole life insurance policies. Year 3, he made this payment again, 82.4. Cash value grew. Net IRR, this represents the net growth rate here, was 177. Then year 4, so the highest we could illustrate was 81,460. There's the break-even point. Year 4, chances are extremely likely he is going to be positive in year 4. I should have ran the guarantees with this as well, as just glancing at this, if no dividends are paid, it'll probably still break even in year 4, just based on what has happened in the first 3 years. So it's performing quite nicely, which is great. So as we answer that question, how is my policy performing? Measuring the internal rate of return each year is great. That's if you like percentages. If you prefer dollars, we're going to look at that in a minute. Before we do that, let's look at the different assumptions here, the different funding tables, I should say. So same policy, but what we have here is not stopping the funding at year 6. Instead, funding $30K per year through year 10. There we go. You see the total payments increasing as well because he's pumping more money into the policy. There's your IRR. A little bit lower while you are adding money to the policy, which is common with any whole life insurance policy. And then 30-year fund, which is the same thing through the 10th year. And then $15K per year, and then $7,500 per year, which is his true base premium in this example, through year 30. And we can design it in a different manner. I should say we can illustrate it in a different manner if he wants to fund longer, shorter. We always work up different options based on what the individual wants to see as time passes. So these illustrations are all based on the dividend interest rate. Let's look at the indexed rider. So exact same thing here, but exercising that indexed rider. So if we go back and forth, here's one thing that I can just bring your attention to. Look at this column, the annual IRR. By year 10, you're at 4.9%. Going back to the dividend illustration, you're at 4.22%. So that indexed rider does grant greater earning potential on the cash value. The thing to be aware of is that it's all potential. It's based on the S&P 500 history. It could happen, it could not happen. So it is something we want to have awareness around, or I should say the fact we want to have awareness around is if we go with that rider, it does not automatically mean we are going to have more cash value. Should it happen? Yeah, probably. Will it? I'm not going to say that. So here's what I want to look at before we look at growing the policy or the policy growth in dollars are 2 of the detailed illustrations here just to highlight the difference, like where we will actually see the difference. So this is the dividend illustration. And here's what we've got. On the left, year 3, what do you see under the net premium column? 0, because he's already max funded the policy. He's funded up to the MEC limit. He can't add more. He might be able to add a couple $100, but he's all but tapped out. Here's what the cash value will be at the end of this policy year. His net death benefit is at $2 million. You will see that term insurance rider that's attached gradually decrease in this example. So this is the 6-year fund. And this is based on the basic dividend interest rate. Here's how you can tell just by glancing at these 2 illustrations. This column, end of year dividend. This product has a guaranteed rate of 4%. The total dividend interest rate with Guardian is 5.75%. So what that means is this column is going to declare the surplus only, which is the difference between the total dividend interest rate and the guarantee rate of 4%. So that would come out to what? 1.75. All gross rates too. Very easy to follow. Here's how you can quickly tell. Look at here when he's 55. your dividend, $57.88. So if you received an annual statement from the insurance company and you saw this figure, $57.88, on your statement, naturally, what would you think that your cash value grew by that year? I would think $57.88. However, look at this. Here's your net cash value at age 54, 55, you paid in nothing. Cash value is now $670. That's more than $57.88, isn't it? Yes, it is. So the net cash value includes the dividend, but it also includes the guaranteed portion as well. So when we're looking at cash value growth, what I like to look at is the net growth each year. And you usually will not receive that from the insurance company on your annual statement, on your online portal. That is something we do put together for everyone we work with, just to provide more transparency, because people naturally want to know, how is my policy performing? Like, I just want to know how much I got from the insurance company. So I'll show you that in 2 minutes. Here's what I want to show you first. So what we just looked at, that end of year dividend column, this is the dividend illustration. Your year or age 55 cash value was $670,000 and change. Okay. Same thing, but indexed rider. What do you notice here? What's the big difference? That dividend column, isn't it? All we did was flip that rider on at 100%, and we see the greater upside potential. So again, he's interested in this, so we want to make sure it's an option he can exercise in the future. And this assumes he keeps it on forever and the S&P averages what it has always averaged. But again, like, that's all speculative. It could happen, it might not happen. This is a nice rider to attach, but we want to be aware of all of the pros and cons. Going back to the other point I mentioned, if we go back to the dividend illustration and the actual cash value growth, let's look at that. So what we've got here is as follows. 10-year funding dividend illustration and 10-year funding indexed illustration. We've got those IRRs, which are great, but here's what a lot of people like to see. Let's put this in purple, and let's call it annual cash value growth. Sound good? So what we'll do here is see how much the policy is growing by each year. And we want to make sure we back out our payments. There we go. And if we go back to the dividend column, you will see a difference here. But remember what your year 55 or age 55 dividend was? Well, that was the 6-year funding illustration. Never mind. My point is, it'll be much, much less than what we see in this column, because this is just displaying the net cash value growth year over year. So this is based on the dividend illustration. Here's the indexed rider. If you like to look at things conservative, what I would actually do is take a look at the guarantees as well. But this shows what your growth is each year. What we can also look at is the total gain. A lot of people like this, which simply shows what's the total growth my policy has experienced over X number of years. So what we do here, cash value minus total payments. Remember that break-even point, year 4? Watch what happens here. You're in the red, meaning you have less than what you've paid in until you hit that break-even point. There we go. Year 10, $130,000 gain. And if we die, that death benefit is paid out income tax-free to our beneficiaries. Different ways to measure policy performance when asked the question, how is my policy performing? Now, to wrap this up, he was interested in policy loans. So what we've got here is the 6-year funding option. First 3 years have already happened. He's already made those payments. And we've got another 3 years of funding. And here we go. Cash value, death benefit, IRR, so we can see what the net growth rate is each year compared to yearly cash value growth. and then the total gain. So really where this helps is individuals can take a look at this and simply see, is my policy producing more in growth than what I'm paying in loan interest? So he's in policy year 3, 243 in cash value. If he can borrow 95% of that, that's 231. Let's say he takes a loan for 100 grand. Loan interest rate, 5.66%. That's the loan rate on his policy. We would need to run an actual policy loan model in the software. This is just a quick workbook we have to give just rough estimates. Interest payment on 100 grand, 5660. Then we also have total interest payments. Before we look to the right, let's assume he pays interest only through year 6, and then when he stops paying the policy, he begins to repay the loan, and let's apply $20K per year toward the principal until it's paid off. So here's what people usually like to look at, and this applies if you're using your policy for business or real estate or any situation where you're just trying to see what's the growth compared to the interest paid. So here's my $100,000 loan. You'll notice your available equity here decreases. So this will always be 95% of your cash value minus an outstanding loan balance. It represents how much you have access to in terms of a policy loan or cash value collateral loan if you're working with a third-party lender. Annual interest payment. So here we're assuming we pay interest only, $56.60. And here's what's beneficial to look at. So if you scroll your eyes, 1, 2, 3 columns to the right, this is the exact same column, annual interest payment. To the left of it though, we see the yearly cash value growth. So now I can see firsthand what my policy grew by compared to what I paid in loan interest. So when I've got that $100,000 loan outstanding, and I'm being billed 5.66%, that comes out to $5,600 and change. Compared to over here, I've got the 243 in cash value. The IRR is 1.77%, which comes out to 4231. So my growth this year was less than what I paid in loan interest. Before we look at any creative ways, if I'm working with an accountant to perhaps deduct loan interest or a business expense, none of that stuff, right? Not for this video, right? I know that's always a valid point. Next year, what happens? Well, I did not pay any of that loan principal down. At a fixed loan interest rate though, there's the annual interest payment. Cash value though, I'm still earning on everything, is compounding, and I added more money to it, so my growth is higher in this case. So that'll continue to outpace the loan interest unless I add more loans to the policy, because I can draw against it. Then I would measure it each year. But here's what I can look at. When the loan's paid off, what's my total gain compared to my total interest paid? We took a small loan relative to the amount he's paid into the policy, so this will work out in his favor. If he wants to see, or if he asks when would it not work out in my favor, well, what you could do then, let's say this year he takes out $350 and we'll pay it still at $20K per year. We'll pay it back over a long period of time. Usually we see people paying down more aggressive, but what I can still see now, cash value growth compared to interest paid, that does not look bad in this quick model. Heavily leveraged initially, but still, dollar amount that I'm receiving is outpacing the interest, and I am paying that interest down, or paying the loan balance down. But it just gives me something to look at quickly. Anyway, that's all additional information. When asked the question, how is my policy performing? That is good to look at when analyzing the performance. But when answering the question, how's my policy performing? Most important thing, in my opinion, total cash value received each year and the total gain. That's if you like dollars. If you like rate, I would look at the internal rate of return. you'll often see insurance companies use that terminology on their illustration. So you can ask an agent, can you provide an internal rate of return or an IRR report? And they can just click a button in the illustration software and a report will be generated. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know if you have any questions at all. And as always, I hope this helps. Hey guys, Steve Parisi here. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for future videos. If you'd like more information or to see some custom policies for yourself, feel free to call or email our offices at the contact information below.